For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On one afternoon in early autumn, 34-year-old Calvin Pierce and his 5-year-old daughter, Maddie, embarked on a seemingly routine day hike in the majestic Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a place of profound beauty and unforgiving terrain. They never arrived back at their designated camp. Despite an extensive, multi-agency search operation that scoured thousands of acres of dense forest, the father and daughter vanished without a trace into the vast, silent wilderness. For 8 agonizing years, their family lived with unbearable uncertainty, grappling with the crushing silence of an unsolved disappearance. Then, one spring day, deep in the remote backcountry, a startling discovery was made by a pair of unsuspecting tourists. A small, vibrant red shoelace, carefully and deliberately tied around a low-hanging branch at eye level. This is the complete investigation into what happened to Calvin and Maddie Pierce in the heart of the Smokies, and the disturbing truth that lay hidden for so long. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, a sprawling expanse of ancient peaks and verdant valleys, annually draws millions seeking solace or adventure within its primeval beauty. Yet beneath this idyllic facade lies a raw, unforgiving wilderness, a truth that would become devastatingly apparent in the summer of 2008. It was then that Calvin Pierce, a 34-year-old father, and his 5-year-old daughter, Maddie, embarked on what was intended to be a memorable, yet routine, day hike. Their chosen path, the popular Spence Field to Russell Field Loop, was well trodden by many, offering breathtaking vistas and a manageable challenge for a father-daughter excursion. Calvin, an experienced outdoorsman, had meticulously planned their route, ensuring he carried all necessary provisions for a day in the backcountry. Maddie, full of the boundless energy and curiosity typical of her age, embraced every aspect of the adventure, her small red shoes eagerly navigating the forest floor. The morning hours unfolded without incident, filled with the simple joys of nature: the rustling leaves, the distant call of unseen birds, the dappled sunlight filtering through the dense canopy. Then, a sudden, fleeting wildlife sighting disrupted their carefully planned itinerary. A flash of movement in the dense undergrowth, a glimpse of an animal that piqued a child's wonder and a father's desire to share a unique moment, prompted a critical decision. Calvin, perhaps believing they would only stray a short distance, led Maddie off the established path. They pushed through the thick foliage, leaving the familiar, marked trail behind, venturing deeper into an area less traveled and significantly more untamed. This spontaneous detour, born of innocent curiosity, marked the precise moment their journey took a perilous turn. As dusk began its slow descent over the towering ridges, an alarm was sounded. Calvin and Maddie had failed to arrive at their designated camp, where they were expected. The initial flicker of concern quickly escalated into a profound, chilling worry. The vastness of the Great Smoky Mountains, with its labyrinthine network of dense forests, treacherous ravines, and unpredictable weather patterns, possessed an unnerving capacity to absorb individuals without a trace. What began as an innocent, spontaneous exploration had, by nightfall, transformed into an agonizing mystery. The wilderness had seemingly swallowed them whole, and the deepening silence of the mountains offered no immediate answers. The failure of Calvin Pierce and his daughter Maddie to arrive at their designated camp triggered an immediate and comprehensive response from Great Smoky Mountains National Park authorities. As the first light of dawn broke over the ancient peaks, a full-scale search operation was rapidly mobilized, deploying every available resource into the vast wilderness. The urgency was palpable, driven by the knowledge that every passing hour diminished the chances of a positive outcome in such a formidable environment. At the helm of this monumental effort was Ranger Lee McKee, a seasoned veteran with years of experience navigating the park's complex terrain and managing critical incidents. Her command center, a hive of activity, quickly became the nexus for hundreds of searchers. Working closely with her was Arjun Patel, a dedicated backcountry volunteer whose intimate knowledge of the park's most remote and challenging sectors proved invaluable. Together, they coordinated an intricate grid search, dispatching ground teams, K-9 units, and aerial surveillance to scour the vast expanse where Calvin and Maddie were last believed to be. The terrain itself presented an immediate and relentless adversary. The Great Smoky Mountains, while beautiful, are also characterized by dense, often impenetrable forest, steep ravines plunging hundreds of feet, treacherous rock formations, and thickets of rhododendrons so dense they could conceal a person just feet away. The search area, initially focused around the Spence Field to Russell Field Loop and extending outwards, encompassed thousands of acres of unforgiving wilderness, each square foot requiring painstaking examination. Weather conditions, prone to sudden and dramatic shifts, added another layer of complexity, with fog and rain capable of reducing visibility to mere yards. Despite the exhaustive efforts and the sheer number of personnel involved, the initial days yielded no tangible clues. Search teams, pushing through the undergrowth and rappelling into gorges, found no discarded items, no footprints distinct enough to confirm their passage, and no signs of a struggle or a makeshift shelter. It was an agonizing absence of evidence, deepening the mystery of their disappearance. The park, in its silent immensity, seemed to have swallowed the father and daughter whole, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a growing sense of dread. As the first week bled into the second, the initial fervent hope of a swift rescue began to wane, replaced by a grim determination that wrestled constantly with the creeping despair. The relentless search for Calvin and Maddie Pierce, which had consumed hundreds of personnel and countless hours, could not continue indefinitely. After nearly a month of exhaustive effort, with every plausible area scoured and every lead exhausted without yielding a single clue, the agonizing decision was made to scale back active search operations. It was a moment of profound defeat for Ranger Lee McKee, Arjun Patel, and every individual who had poured their energy into the hope of finding the father and daughter alive. The chances of survival in the harsh mountain environment without shelter or supplies dwindled to near zero with each passing day. The official declaration marked the transition from a rescue mission to a recovery effort, though even that prospect seemed increasingly remote. The scaling back of the search did not, however, bring an end to the questions that plagued investigators and the public alike. Where had they gone? What unforeseen circumstances had led them so completely astray? Had they encountered a sudden, tragic accident, or had something more sinister transpired in the remote wilderness? Without any physical evidence, no discarded backpack, no torn clothing, no sign of a fall or a struggle, the case remained an impenetrable enigma. The absence of answers created a profound void, a lingering uncertainty that haunted the collective consciousness of the park community and the Pierce family. As weeks turned into months, and months inexorably stretched into years, the disappearance of Calvin and Maddie Pierce settled into a grim category, a cold case. Their story became another tragic legend whispered around campfires, a cautionary tale of the mountain's indifferent power. The initial flurry of media attention faded, replaced by the quiet, persistent ache of an unsolved mystery. Investigators periodically revisited the files, hoping a fresh perspective or a new piece of information might surface, but the wilderness held its secrets tightly. The Great Smoky Mountains, once a symbol of natural beauty and adventure, now also represented a place where a father and his young daughter had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and an enduring, heartbreaking silence that would persist for nearly a decade. 8 years had passed since Calvin and Maddie Pierce vanished into the vastness of the Great Smoky Mountains. The initial fervor of the search had long since faded, replaced by the quiet, persistent ache of an unsolved mystery. The park, in its cyclical rhythm of seasons, had continued its ancient dance of growth and decay, seemingly erasing any trace of the missing father and daughter. But the wilderness, while different, sometimes held its secrets in plain sight, waiting for the right eyes to perceive them. It was in the late spring of 2016, a full 8 years after the Pierce disappearance, that a seemingly ordinary day for two tourists would irrevocably alter the trajectory of the cold case. Beck and Sloane Hart, a couple from out of state with a passion for nature photography, were exploring a less frequented section of the park, several miles southwest of the Spence Field area. They sought the unique light and untouched beauty that lay beyond the most popular trails, their cameras ever ready to capture a fleeting moment of natural artistry. Beck, with his keen eye for detail, was adjusting his lens, focusing on the intricate patterns of moss on an ancient oak, when Sloane called his attention to something unusual. Nestled among the dense undergrowth, just off a faint deer path they were following, a splash of vivid color stood out against the muted greens and browns of the forest floor. It was a child's red shoelace. Its presence in such a remote, wild setting was immediately incongruous. But what made the discovery truly arresting was not merely its color or its unexpected location, but its precise arrangement. The shoelace was not simply dropped or entangled. It was neatly tied around a slender, living branch, positioned deliberately at eye level. It appeared almost like a small, unexpected flag, purposefully placed. Sloane, intrigued by the peculiar sight, reached for her own camera. She photographed the shoelace from several angles, documenting its specific placement and the unusual knot that secured it to the branch. Neither Beck nor Sloane could have comprehended the profound significance of their find at that moment. To them, it was an oddity, perhaps a child's forgotten trinket, or a curious piece of trail art left by a previous hiker. They exchanged a brief, speculative glance, a shared shrug of mild curiosity, before continuing their photographic journey, unaware they had just stumbled upon the first tangible clue in an 8-year-old mystery, a silent message left by a desperate father. The curious photograph of a child's red shoelace, captured by Beck and Sloane Hart, eventually found its way to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park authorities. What began as a mere curiosity for the tourists quickly escalated into something far more profound as park personnel recognized the potential significance of the find. 8 years had passed since the disappearance of Calvin and Maddie Pierce, and the case had long since settled into a dormant file, a painful reminder of an unsolved tragedy. Now, a single, unassuming object found in a remote section of the wilderness threatened to reignite the embers of that cold investigation. The discovery prompted an immediate reevaluation of the Pierce case. Old files, thick with reports and maps from the original exhaustive search, were pulled from storage. Ranger Lee McKee, who had spearheaded the initial efforts, found herself staring at the familiar faces of Calvin and Maddie once more. Alongside her, backcountry volunteer Arjun Patel, whose memory of the vast search areas remained sharp, began to meticulously review every detail, searching for any overlooked connection. The shoelace, now a physical piece of evidence, breathed a fragile new life into a mystery that had resisted resolution for nearly a decade. The red shoelace itself became the immediate focal point of forensic scrutiny. Its bright color, surprisingly resilient against the elements, suggested it might have been made of synthetic material, durable enough to withstand 8 years of exposure to the mountain's harsh climate. Experts examined its fibers, its degree of degradation, and any minute traces of organic matter that might cling to it, hoping for a lead. But it was the manner in which it was tied that truly captivated the investigators. The knot was not a haphazard loop, nor a simple granny knot. It possessed a distinct, deliberate configuration, suggesting purpose rather than accident. Its placement at eye level on a slender branch further underscored an intentional act. While its full meaning remained elusive, the precise nature of the knot began to emerge as a critical, singular detail, a potential identifier that could, perhaps, link it directly to the missing father. The specific knot, meticulously analyzed by forensic experts, proved to be the pivotal breakthrough investigators had desperately sought. It was a specialized variation of a figure eight on a bight, a knot commonly taught in advanced wilderness rescue and survival courses. This detail immediately resonated with Ranger Lee McKee and Arjun Patel. During the initial investigation, Calvin Pierce's background had been thoroughly vetted, and his training records confirmed extensive wilderness rescue certification, which included proficiency in such specialized knots for marking trails or securing equipment. The implications were staggering. This was no random discarded item. It was a deliberate signal, the first in a series of breadcrumbs left by Calvin Pierce, a desperate father attempting to mark a path for rescuers, even as he faced unimaginable circumstances. With this revelation, the 8-year-old case was not merely reopened, it was fundamentally re-envisioned. Ranger McKee and Arjun Patel, now armed with a directed purpose, assembled a specialized team. Their mission was clear: to follow the trail of these unique knots, to trace the breadcrumbs Calvin had so painstakingly laid. The search shifted to a previously dismissed sector, an area notorious for its blow-down maze, a chaotic tangle of fallen trees, dense underbrush, and treacherous footing created by a past microburst. This was the kind of terrain where a conventional search would struggle, but a deliberate trail of markers could prove invaluable. Days turned into weeks of arduous, painstaking work. Each discovered shoelace, tied with the identical rescue training knot, confirmed they were on the right path, leading them deeper into the heart of the blowdown. The markers were spaced irregularly, sometimes hidden, sometimes prominently displayed, a testament to Calvin's fading strength but enduring will. The trail, a testament to a father's enduring hope, eventually led them to a particularly dense section of the blowdown. There, amidst the splintered trunks and exposed roots, the final red shoelace was found, tied to a low-hanging branch. Just beyond it, partially obscured by a massive, overturned tree, lay the entrance to a collapsed root cave. The search team approached the collapsed root cave with a mixture of dread and grim determination. The entrance, partially buried under the immense root ball of a fallen tree, was narrow and unstable. After careful excavation to ensure safety, investigators finally breached the dark, confined space. Inside, the tragic truth of Calvin and Maddie Pierce's 8-year disappearance was at last revealed. Within the collapsed chamber, sheltered as best as possible from the elements, lay the remains of Calvin Pierce, his arms still protectively draped over the smaller, fragile bones of his daughter, Maddie. The items found with them, a small, worn backpack, a child's distinctive red shoe, and a few other personal effects, corroborated their identities beyond any doubt. The cause of death was determined to be hypothermia and exposure, likely exacerbated by injuries sustained during the collapse of the root cave, which had offered only a temporary, ultimately insufficient refuge. Calvin Pierce's final act was a testament to his training and his profound love for his daughter. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, injured and succumbing to the elements, he had methodically utilized his rescue training knowledge, leaving a trail of meticulously tied shoelaces, each a silent, desperate beacon. This breadcrumb route, stretching through the brutal blowdown maze, was not just a path. It was a father's enduring message, a final, valiant attempt to be found, to guide rescuers to his child. His resourcefulness, though tragically delayed in its discovery, ultimately brought resolution to an 8-year-old mystery. The crucial role of Beck and Sloane Hart, the tourist couple whose keen eyes and photographic instincts initiated the breakthrough, could not be overstated. Their seemingly innocuous photograph of a red shoelace, taken out of mild curiosity, had transformed a cold case into a solvable puzzle. Without their accidental discovery, Calvin's desperate trail might have remained unseen, buried forever beneath the forest's relentless cycle of growth and decay. The discovery brought a painful, yet undeniable, form of closure to the Pierce family and the park community. The relief of finally knowing what happened was inextricably bound with the profound sorrow of the outcome. 8 years of agonizing uncertainty had ended, replaced by the solemn, our reality of loss. The Great Smoky Mountains, while beautiful, once again served as a stark reminder of nature's immense power and indifference. The memory of Calvin and Maddie Pierce, a father and daughter who vanished in the wilderness, became a permanent part of the park's history, a somber lesson in the unforgiving nature of the wild and the enduring, resourceful spirit of a father's love.